Aristotle's political and social philosophy. When assessing the political and social situation of ancient Greece, Aristotle observed dissatisfaction with how governments formed states or the ideas of philosophers. This was due to a lack of fairness. This deficiency led to governments controlling the country or political theories relying on imposition and power, resulting in harmful consequences. Therefore, in Aristotle's political philosophy, he emphasizes the value of justice. It is constructed and applied based on elements such as citizenship and the state, constitutional governance, marriage, and education. 1. Citizenship. A. Concept of citizenship. The concept of citizenship, although introduced by Plato, was reconsidered and redefined by Aristotle. For Aristotle, a citizen is a vital part of constituting a state. A person is considered a citizen when they are free in a free country, allowing them the right to participate in enforcing justice and taking on responsibilities in the government, in a country that permits its citizens to carry out such tasks. According to this concept, citizens include both leaders and common people. Aristotle highly values the equality of different classes in society, defining the contribution of citizens to the state based on their roles. B. Characteristics of citizens. Because of its importance to a state, being a citizen comes with certain requirements. Whether in a leadership position or an ordinary citizen, the common demand is for individuals to know how to govern as a free person and obey as a free person. Both aspects require citizens to act autonomously, whether leading others or following authority. Therefore, according to Aristotle, a citizen must know how to handle matters independently. In conclusion, Aristotle's political and social philosophy highlights the importance of justice and the active participation of citizens in governance. He stresses the need for citizens, whether leaders or common people, to possess qualities of autonomy and the ability to govern or follow authority judiciously. 2. State and political system. A. The emergence and essence of the state. Discussing the birth of the state, Aristotle presented a series of comprehensive analyses, starting from individual factors and progressing to the overall structure of the state. Beginning with the relationship between men and women leading to the formation of families, multiple families combined to form villages, and then villages linked together formed a complete state. Aristotle explained this process as follows. When many families come together, and this union aims at a higher goal than just meeting daily needs, the first society is established, the village. When villages are connected with each other to form a united and complete community, a community large enough to be self-sufficient, the state, polis, is born from the fundamental needs of life and continues to exist for a good life. This passage thoroughly explains the emergence of the state based on the factor of time. In this context, individual and family factors precede the state over time. The driving force behind the transition from individuals to the state is the factor that man is a political animal, according to Aristotle. Hence, people have a need to come together to form a community to fulfill needs that individuals cannot meet independently. Consequently, human society creates the state. Aristotle emphasizes the social nature of humans in creating the state. Looking at the natural aspect, Aristotle affirms that the existing state precedes the individual and the family. He explains this by stating, "The whole is always prior to the part. The whole is the common foundation for all parts, and no part can exist independently, thus relying on the whole for its existence." Evaluating this natural aspect reveals that the state is not the destination of the community, but rather the starting point for the development of each individual. Aristotle aims to balance the roles of the state and the individual, avoiding the exaggeration of individual freedom or the excessive elevation of the role of the state. In essence, regardless of the perspective, the state's primary duty is to contribute to the well-being of human life. Thanks to the state, the needs of individuals are ensured, and individuals can realize their full potential. This leads to becoming virtuous individuals. Additionally, the state must respect the diversity of individuals, the many segments of the population in a country. Since various communities make up a state, these communities provide and satisfy each other's needs. Therefore, diversity in individuals contributes to the state's survival and development. Aristotle decisively addresses this issue, Make all citizens alike rather than bringing the highest benefits to the nation and turning it into a destroyer of the nation, and the more diverse a state, the better it is. Through the analysis of the nature of the state, it is evident that Aristotle highly values the issue of citizenship by emphasizing that the state must respect the differences among various citizen groups, avoiding the elevation of any particular citizen group. b. Forms of government and the best possible state model. As mentioned earlier, Aristotle also analyzed the forms of government based on the political context of ancient Greece. He classified forms of government based on the number of people holding power in that government. Therefore, there are three forms of government: monarchy, aristocracy, and republic. Monarchy is a form of government where power is in the hands of one person, the king. Aristocracy is when a group of wealthy individuals, the aristocracy, holds leadership power, and a republic is when the majority of citizens have the right to govern. This classification makes sense in the political context of that time when there were not many coordinating factors. By dividing the forms of government based on the number of people in power, Aristotle saw the inherent characteristics of each form of government. There are two types: a good government, meaning it serves the interests of the majority, and a corrupt government, meaning it only serves the interests of the ruling class. Aristotle identified the corrupt forms of each type of government and analyzed them as follows: the corrupt form of monarchy is tyranny, the corrupt form of aristocracy is oligarchy, and the third corrupt form is democracy. Tyranny fails because the king only cares about the interests of the ruling class. Oligarchy fails because the wealthy aristocrats only care about their own interests, and democracy fails because it only cares about the interests of the poor. There is no form that cares about the common interests of the nation. From the analysis, it can be seen that every government tends to either be good or corrupt. So, what makes a government good or corrupt? According to Aristotle, the answer lies in each government's consideration and application of the concept of justice in ruling the country. However, this is not simple. Aristotle warned that different forms of government would evaluate and apply this concept differently. For instance, how would an autocratic government, where power is concentrated in the hands of the king, handle matters? Does their moral foundation ensure fair distribution rather than focusing solely on their nobility? It is challenging for them to become a person who is both a virtuous citizen and has general virtue. In summary, the leader must have high moral character, as analyzed by the Gia and Donchin based on Aristotle's perspective. For oligarchy and democracy, the concept of justice is imperfectly interpreted and cannot fully express its meaning. The leadership elements in these two forms of government want to skew fairness towards themselves, and they rationalize it as reasonable. They take on the role of judges to determine what is fair, while, in reality, they are just an element in the overall composition of many factors that make up a fair society. This is the reason for the corrupt form of government. Aristotle explained this reason as follows: both oligarchy and democracy believe that justice is equality in participation in government, but according to democrats, it is equality among equals, not for everyone. In the oligarchic system, inequality in government participation is considered justice, but it is equality among those of the same class. When applying the principle of equality, they are both the subject and the judge. And people, when dealing with their interests, cannot judge fairly. Every form of government always harbors a corrupt form. This can be a danger to the country, but people cannot achieve an ideal state. Therefore, Aristotle proposes the model of the best possible state, combining the advantages of democracy and oligarchy to create a balanced government. According to Sahakan's analysis, although there is a risk that democracy, with the majority of the population in power, may be flawed, its advantage lies in prioritizing freedom and not requiring wealth to participate in government. On the other hand, oligarchy may have its power easily manipulated by the aristocrats, but its advantage is having restrictions on who can be selected into public office. Combining the advantages of these two types of government results in a better state, a government that ensures the freedom of the people to choose their leaders and contributes opinions to the government, while also ensuring that the selected leaders meet certain requirements, morality, wealth, for national leadership. Aristotle concluded about this new form of government as follows: in a constitutional government, republic, or according to aristocracy, the principles will be derived from each model, meaning, from oligarchy, the principle of chieftainship by the people, and from democracy, the principle of not requiring wealth. An ideal mixed regime should include the characteristics of both democracy and oligarchy. When studying the models of government, Aristotle outlined two foundations for a government. First, the government must be based on a constitution. What is the concept of a constitution? According to Aristotle's definition, a constitution is the organization of the structure of a country, especially its highest authority. The government has supreme power throughout the country, and the constitution is, in fact, the government. Although defined succinctly, we can see the values of the constitution in determining the government model, organizing and arranging government agencies, guiding the government to enact laws to govern the country. Another fundamental value of the government is that the principle of governance must be derived from morality, meaning that morality is the decisive factor in the constitution, and as the principle is right, so is the government. In this case, Aristotle did not provide a specific definition of the principle, but based on the research of Du Din Hung, a philosopher who studied Aristotle, he pointed out the principle is the overall personality, intelligence, wisdom, and enthusiasm of the people at the top of the government to decide on national issues. That principle is a factor that determines the qualification and leadership ability of people who come to power. With the right principle, leaders will use their talents to promote the country, otherwise, the government will decline. In Aristotle's eyes, the principle is important because, according to a study by Nguyen Hu Tho, an expert on political theory, the quality of the people at the top is the deciding factor in whether the government is good or bad. If the ruling class has good quality, it will lead to a good government. Therefore, those who will decide the fate of the government are those who come to power. Summarizing the opinions of Du Din Hung, Nguyen Hu Tho, and other experts, to ensure a good government, it is essential to focus on training leaders, to have a highly intelligent, moral elite who have great enthusiasm for national development. This means to build a team of people who truly understand the interest of the people and the country, possess wisdom, and are dedicated to the community. It is also necessary to train them in ethics and virtue, and to guide them so that they can use their talents to lead the country to prosperity. C. Moral virtues and the role of education in building good citizens. In Aristotle's political philosophy, moral virtues play a crucial role in the formation of good citizens and, consequently, a good government. According to Aristotle, moral virtues are qualities or dispositions that lead to ethical behavior and contribute to the well-being of the individual and the community. Aristotle distinguished between intellectual virtues and moral virtues. Intellectual virtues involve the rational aspect of human nature, such as wisdom and understanding, while moral virtues pertain to the ethical and character-related qualities, such as courage, justice, and generosity. Moral virtues are acquired through habituation and practice, and they are essential for individuals to lead a virtuous and flourishing life. The cultivation of moral virtues is closely tied to the concept of eudaimonia, which can be translated as flourishing or living well. According to Aristotle, the ultimate goal of human life is to achieve eudaimonia, and moral virtues are the means to attain this goal. Eudaimonia is not merely individual happiness but involves the well-being of the entire community. Thus, the pursuit of moral virtues is integral to the development of good citizens and the common good. Education plays a pivotal role in the cultivation of moral virtues. Aristotle emphasized the importance of education in shaping the character of individuals and fostering the development of virtuous citizens. He believed that the purpose of education is not only to impart knowledge and skills but, more importantly, to instill moral values and virtues. Aristotle's educational philosophy aimed at nurturing well-rounded individuals who possess both intellectual and moral excellence. The curriculum should include subjects that contribute to the intellectual development of individuals, such as mathematics, science, and literature, but it should also prioritize the cultivation of moral virtues through ethical education. The role of the state in education is crucial, according to Aristotle. He advocated for a system of public education that ensures equal opportunities for all citizens to receive a well-rounded and morally grounded education. The state, in Aristotle's view, has a responsibility to guide the educational system and promote the development of virtuous citizens who can contribute to the common good. In summary, Aristotle's political philosophy is deeply rooted in his ethical framework, emphasizing the importance of moral virtues in individual and communal well-being. The best possible state, according to Aristotle, is one that combines elements of democracy and oligarchy, guided by a constitution and led by morally virtuous leaders. Education plays a central role in the cultivation of moral virtues, and the state has a responsibility to ensure equal access to a comprehensive education that fosters the development of good citizens. 3. The idea of governance as a foundation. The foundational element of governance for a government is also one of the crucial factors in determining whether a government is good or bad. This factor is divided by philosophers into rulership and legislation. Before Aristotle, there were various inclinations towards rulership, but he emphasized and favored legislation over rulership in governing a state. A. Legislation compared to rulership. According to Aristotle, the highest good in political science is justice, and justice includes what contributes to the common good. Therefore, the common good must come from justice, and justice means that everyone should be equal in all aspects and be guaranteed by the government in the pursuit of happiness. Thus, considering nature, leadership is not the privilege of any individual or group. According to Aristotle, a nation consists of various elements coming together, and if all these groups demand leadership based on factors, wealth, reputation, virtue, etc., how should it be resolved? Therefore, there is no argument on which one can rely to claim the right to rule and force others to submit to it as correct. The spirit of legislation is based on a foundation of fair laws that encompass the elements of justice, but rulership involves the human effort to achieve justice. Considering the essential elements of citizenship, every citizen can either be a leader or be governed. These functions are not confined to spatial and temporal elements. The law, through the government and the people, will elect leaders. Additionally, the law ensures that leadership cannot be prolonged by electing successors. Therefore, legislation ensures a more just distribution of responsibilities. Although both legislation and rulership are carried out by humans, legislation ensures more objective elements than rulership. Aristotle believed that laws are enacted by a group of people, legislative body, and even though they are strictly required to follow each word of the law, they can ensure correctness for specific situations, while rulership deals with issues influenced and controlled by emotional reactions. Therefore, between humans who are subject to emotional influence and laws that are inherently objective, the law must govern better. Another factor that Aristotle added to compare legislation with rulership is the virtue factor. To have a good rulership, individuals or ruling groups must possess absolute virtues. Can every individual be trained or found to have such qualities? Aristotle affirmed that, those with such absolute virtues can only be saints and cannot be human, whereas leaders in the government based on legislation can be encouraged to lead the country correctly or be held accountable when they make mistakes. B. The value of legislation for governing a country. After Aristotle compared these two foundational elements, we can see two core values that legislation brings. Firstly, laws enacted by a specialized body are easier to lead towards justice and the common good for the nation. Secondly, good legislation is the result of two essential factors: reason and the supreme being. Human reason argues and carefully weighs to establish laws, and the supreme being is the essential factor of everything, where it originates all goodness, justice, happiness, that legislation strives for. Thanks to the supreme being, laws ensure uniqueness, integrity, and universality. Aristotle concluded this value as follows: those who advocate legislation mean advocating that reason and the supreme being rule, while those who advocate rulership have added animal instincts to human judgment because desire is an animal instinct, and the passion for ruling corrupts the governing mind, even if that person is the most talented. Marriage and education. A. Marriage. Aristotle was quite concerned about the institution of marriage because, for him, marriage is a fundamental foundation of a nation. Marriage creates families, and from families, a social community is formed, leading to the establishment of a nation. An individual's well-being, according to Aristotle, begins with the consequences of marriage. Specifically, there are three factors that contribute to a person's well-being, including physical characteristics, due to heredity, the consequence of marriage. Therefore, the first thing lawmakers must pay attention to is the combination of the population. According to Aristotle, regarding the age of marriage, men should be 37 years old, and women should be 18 years old. At this age, it ensures reproductive health for both men and women and ensures the role of the man in the family. Any deviation from these age limits in marriage will lead to significant consequences. Furthermore, Aristotle also added the factor of caring for reproductive health for women and condemned promiscuity because it destroys marriage and family. He said, "As for promiscuity, it is a crime deserving condemnation and punishment for both men and women if it occurs between spouses. If it occurs during the reproductive period, the offender must be penalized by losing some corresponding rights." Aristotle also cautioned about determining the appropriate reproductive age for both men and women, even suggesting that the government should control the birth rate. If the birth rate increases excessively, abortion must be accepted to stabilize the population. b. Education. The educational factor in Aristotle's view is also one of the elements shaping a well-rounded individual. Education will train individuals in both habits and rational qualities. For Aristotle, educating citizens from a young age involves physical training, and as they grow, their logical faculties are trained and developed through intellectual subjects. Broadly speaking, education also helps the entire population understand and adhere to laws, promote national unity, and make young people become good citizens, obedient to the government, and capable of leadership. Therefore, Aristotle calls for the government to pay attention to the education of the younger generation, as education also influences the government. He says, "Citizens must be educated to be in line with the government model in which they live." Specifically, the government plays a crucial role in directing this area, organizing a unified education system for the entire country. Firstly, it is physical education, followed by teaching intellectual subjects that develop their minds. Through Aristotle's philosophical system about politics and society, it can be seen that he has reasonably well addressed the establishment of a foundation for justice in a nation. From solving the essence of citizenship and the state, balancing the relationship between these two elements, as well as establishing a stable society based on marriage and education, Aristotle has managed to deal with the existing issues left by previous models of government or political ideologies. Therefore, he avoided the pitfalls of those who came before him and affirmed himself with a unique theory, a political theory that values justice.